We know what everyone should do. We know how to fix everyone. We know how to fix our husbands. We know how to do it. And so instead of listening, if our child comes to us and says, Mom, I want to really talk to you. Okay. Talk. Oh, this is what you need to do. You need to do this, this, and this. And I think that's where we get kind of caught in, why don't my kids listen to me? And I talk to so many moms, my kids, they never listen. I always tell them what to do. And I said, well, just hear what you just said.
Hey mama, welcome to Naturally Empowered Living, your safe space to guiding you on your unapologetic self-awakening journey to learning your energy of alignment and feeling good again. This is your weekly sanctuary to wake up from autopilot and transform the way you approach motherhood and life through the power of meditation, energetics, and root cause therapy. It's my mission to help you embody the foundations of self-love, trust, and inner connection to be unapologetic in the evolution of who you are. Here, we honor all parts of ourselves, the messy and the magic, the shadows and the light. If you are ready to get to the roots of cultivating real change, warm up that cold coffee, pop in your earbuds, and tighten that top knot, mama. Let's discover our power within together. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Naturally Empowered Living, formerly known as the Balanced Mom Method podcast. This is your host and intuitive life mentor, Jenna Smith. And I'm so excited to welcome another inspiring guest on the show today, Julia. She is a homeschooling mom of 6, wife of over 25 years, certified life, marriage, and high performance coach. Oh my gosh, we all need some Julia in our life. She is a children's author, the host of a podcast with her husband where they talk about family, life coaching, and running a business. And I'm so excited to jump into some depths today about talking about the keys of listening and key steps for successful communication. We could all get better at our communication skills if I am saying so myself. So Julia, welcome to the show. I would love for you to share just a little more about yourself and what kind of molded you into who you are today and what brought you to where you are within your business space also.
Sure. Hey, Jenna, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's such a big question, right? Where I came from, let's say, and when I think back, when people ask me that question, it's my memories are just flooded with so many amazing moments of being a mom, being married 25 years. My husband originally had a restaurant. And so it was always a busy life. But in that busy life, there was so much, loneliness, because as a mother, we have all these kids and they talk a lot and they make noise, but there's a lot of lonely moments. Mm-hmm. And I remember we lived in New York at the time. We're in Florida now, but I've been in New York and the winters are long and it's cold and it's hard. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what is the purpose of all this? Like, how am I actually giving back to society by being home for weeks and weeks at a time with my little children, trying to homeschool them, trying to provide for them, cooking for them, cleaning for them. It's just like the days would just be continuous, never ending, up at night, nursing for like 18 to 20 years of my life. It's just like nonstop. It's like, what is all this? And I remember thinking about that. I'm like, God, what is the purpose? Like, how am I giving back to the world? Mm-hmm. And it took me, 25 years to realize that all of those moments of loneliness and overwhelmed, there were excitements and all of that gave me all this experience. I was like, oh, and in our children that we're raising, that we're staying or sacrificing our days, those people are going to be adults in the world and they're going to make a difference to other people. And so it took like my daughter to go to college and her to come home and have these amazing stories about how she changed people's lives for me to be like, oh my gosh, okay, wait a minute. There's something more here that we don't think about as moms, because sometimes we just go through life raising our kids and like, what's next? What am I doing here? Mm-hmm. And so through that, I became a life coach. It's like, I actually want to help women. I want to actually learn about how to listen to them, how to actually guide, how to explain my experiences to people. So it's not just me. One of my biggest fears, honestly, in life was speaking. Like when I say that, I would never actually go to a mom's group like the circle where you have to like, hi, my name's Julia.
Sure.
I would actually be like, run. It's like, no, thanks. I'm actually busy. Oh, my child has dinner. So I'm going to go just sit outside and talk to somebody. And so I had to overcome some major fears. And one of them was speaking. And I went into life coaching with the thought that I want to help as many people as I can. And in order to do that, I have to overcome these fears. And so my purpose was something more. I said, I'm going to be afraid and do it anyway. I'm going to start a podcast with my husband and be terrified. He used to make fun of me. He's like, Julie, you okay? I'm like, no, I'm good. I was terrified.
I'm good.
Horrible. It was horrible. And that's what I'm just here to tell all the ladies listening. Like, you are doing something that no one else can. You were raising those children in your home. You were given those children as a gift because God trusts you with what the mission you have in raising them. And they have such a purpose in life. And we don't realize it sometimes for so long. But it's so rewarding when you see it happen, when they become adults. Unbelievable.
I already have tears in my eyes as you're talking, because there's like so many different avenues that I could go down right now. I do have to agree with the speaking though. When I was little, my mom still listens to my podcast. But when I was little, I would get up on, like, I wouldn't get up on stage, like, like the school assemblies and stuff. Like, they would call my parents from like behind the curtain and like, come get your child. And even in college, I remember like that was my worst subject. And here I am now, with the host of the podcast and like having these speaking events. And I'm like, gosh, like just those messages and like it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And like the lessons that we learn to get where we are. And then, I mean, sharing with your children too, it's like these epiphany moments that we have because we get so lost in the monotony of the day, the overstimulation, what you're sharing. And it's so true. Like, it's so hard to live in the present, but to get it all done, to be able to consume everything that every child is saying, but still have your own voice. It's a lot. So thank you for just opening with that, because it's just very powerful to step back in to ourselves also and to find, to find that purpose and to find that calling. So how did that journey unfold for you? How many kids did you have? How old were you? How did that transition happen were you just a stay-at-home mom? Not just, but like, were you a stay-at-home mom? Did you have a in-home job or anything, or were you homeschooling? What did that look like?
Yeah. I mean, so my husband, it's interesting because I came from a background where everybody was divorced. Like my parents, everyone that we knew it was unfortunate, and I hated it. I literally looked at my situation and I thought to myself, I actually want to be married. I want to have a family. I want to stay at home. I want to raise them. And it was an interesting time for me because I had just graduated high school. I was going into college. And everyone's like, oh, Julie, your career? What do you want to do? And I told them, and I actually had gotten yelled at by a couple of women. And of course they have a story behind why they were mad. And there's something real behind that. But I was like, no, that's what I want. That's what I desire. I really just want to be home and raise a family. I didn't know who that was. I didn't know who my husband was yet. I didn't know it's just kind of weird, right? When we look back and think about like life before our family. And so my husband, is an old school Italian, come from an Italian background. And I remember we met, he bought the restaurant I worked at, and we used to joke around and tease each other and stuff like that. He's 5 years older than me. And we eventually started dating, and I was like, this is what I want. He had a family that were so together in a sense where they listened to each other, they respected each other. And I was like, that's what I want. I see it. And so when we had gotten married, whatever, I stayed home. He had run a restaurant. And so I did what I could to help. I mean, back then it was before like the internet and stuff. So they would call me. He's like, can you do the menus? And so stuff like that I would do as much as I could, but just to help him. So I didn't have a job. I didn't have a paying job. So I homeschooled for the past, my oldest is 20, she's 24. My youngest is 9. And so we've been homeschooling from the beginning. And years ago it was a little different because there was no online classes. There's nothing like that. So it's definitely gotten easier for the mother for sure. And I'm taking all advantage of that because it's awesome. But I didn't work from home. And so I had the ability to truly stay home and raise the kids. And I was so thankful for my husband because he worked his butt off so I could stay home and raise the kids. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, no, I don't work. My gosh. And, you know, and everyone listening, you all work. Really, you don't get paid.
Right.
But the work we're doing, it like you can't even, I joke with my husband, I'm like, you just can't afford me.
It's
Julia,
true.
can you work for me? You can't afford me. You know what I mean? And so it's important for us to realize that the value we all have at home. You know, a lot of women that I've talked to, they're like, well, you know, I really want to get a career so I feel like I could give back, so I could feel valuable and worth. And it's unfortunate that we don't realize the value we have just being a mother. I mean, it's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, like it is. I cherish so much, and there's been so many pivotal moments to where I do get frustrated, you know, with, oh, this was supposed to be nap time and my work time, you know, and I always come back to that, Jenna, like I have the opportunity, like to raise not only the next generation, but it's just like to raise these beautiful beings, like just the privilege that is. And yeah, it's so easily, I don't want to say overlooked or taken for granted because life is hard. Life is so hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And two, I just want to put this out there because I was thinking about this recently. It's like, there's so many things I want to do. You know, I do have women's groups. I do have private coaching. I have a lot of things that I do. And sometimes I do a little too much. Sometimes it goes over that line where I'm like literally neglecting my home. And I come home, you know, which is right across. I have offices here in the house, but I come out in the other room and the kids are like, Mom, you know, I haven't seen you. Meanwhile, I'm home, but you know, we haven't had that quality time. And so it's almost as if every week I have to look. I'm like, am I doing too much? Like, where do I have to balance? Where do I have to, you know, there are moments where we get excited about certain projects that we have. And it's all good. We're doing great things. But then it's like, all right, hold on a second. My house is in shambles right now. I have to actually get back to reorganize. I love reorganizing our home, but you know what I mean? And so there's always going to be those moments where I feel like the kids are good. They're in a place where they're busy with whatever they're doing and they don't need me as much. And then there are moments when it's the opposite. And I feel like as moms, we have to kind of figure out where we're needed when. And there's kind of goes ups and downs. And there's that guilt, of course, that comes in. And I always have to tell myself, and I tell women, I'm like, listen, we're all doing the best we can with what we know right now. And a year from now, we'll look back. We're like, oh, I should have done this, this, and this. But I didn't know that then. Right now, this is right now, this is what we could do. And that's okay.
That's so profound. And I love because how many times have you said, like, we do our best, but we do our best with what we know right now. That's so profound because we are on this constant growth evolution.
Yes. I mean, it's such a journey. It's such a journey, right? And that's where we get our wisdom from. You see, like the older women sitting in the rocking chairs knitting, right? It's like, how do they get so wise? They experienced all this and we don't know it yet. We don't know it all yet, you know?
Exactly. And to be open to take the punches and to go through the seasons and to the grace, because you know, like when you said the guilt and we could talk about this. So I guess kind of reeling it back in with listening, because I'm just so excited to dive into your expertise with the power of listening, with effective communication, with, you know, within relationships internally and, you know, possibly in your business like setting. So how have you observed that within your clients, within your house, the power of, or the dynamic of effective listening and communication?
Yeah, it's interesting because we could listen really well to people we don't know. And so it's easy to have coaching clients, because you can just listen. You don't have any emotional attachment to them. But, you know, I have 5 daughters and they all talk a lot. Okay. My husband talks a lot. My son, not so much, but it's interesting how we listen to different people, different types of people. And what I noticed is, especially as a mom, we have a sense. We know what everyone should do. We know how to fix everyone. We know how to fix our husbands. We know how to do it. And so we, instead of listening, if our child comes to us and says, Mom, you know, I want to really talk to you. Okay. Talk. Oh, this is what you need to do. You need to do this, this, and this. And I think that's where we get kind of caught in, why don't my kids listen to me? And I talk to so many moms, my kids, they never listen. I always tell them what to do. And I said, well, just hear what you just said. You're not being listened to, but you're not listening to them. And I always say, when we really desire something from someone else, if we desire to be heard by someone else, if we desire to be respected by someone else, whatever it is, our desire in that other person, the question is, write it down and then say to yourself, okay, am I giving that to them? So if my husband's not listening, okay, am I listening to him? Like there's that back and forth, because we do complain a lot about our kids. They don't listen. And the question is, are we listening to what they have to say? Or are we telling them what they're supposed to be doing? And so what I do sometimes, and this is hard, especially if you've never done it, literally just sit on the floor, ask your kids a question, and just sit back and don't say anything at all. Watch them. Watch their facial expressions, watch their mannerism, watch when they get excited about something, watch when they get frustrated. Just literally watch them and don't have any advice. Because a lot of times they'll just, and even with our spouses, even with our friends, a lot of times we know what to do. We know the answers, but we just need to talk it out. And so a lot of times with listening, it's so basic as not talking. Just stop talking and let the person speak. I mean, isn't that simple, Jenna?
It is. And it's so hard, because especially in the setting of kids, right?
Yes,
because you want to help them, but are you molding them into being independent, problem solving, effective?
Yes, exactly.
You could go down a rabbit hole, right?
Sure.
With helping them raise them. And yeah. So would you say that's the biggest challenge, in families with people that you work with, is that talking at them versus,
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it more. So here's the challenge for everyone listening. And sometimes it's just the awareness. We actually don't have an awareness. If you've never, before I did life coaching, I was not aware. I was aware of everyone else. Because, I didn't like to talk. So probably you as well, Jenna. It's like, if you're not used to talking a lot or being on stage and talking, sometimes you sit back and don't talk, and you are very observant of other people, right? And so when someone comes in the room, we could kind of tell if they're in a bad mood. We could tell a lot by just watching, right? And so the same with our children. We can tell a lot by just watching them. But the hard thing to do is with our children is to ask a question and say, I can fix this. And here's the thing that I tell some people, and it's hard to hear, but when someone comes to us with a question, or a kid or whatever, and we go and say, here's what you have to do. Oh, no, that's not going to work. This is what you have to do. What they're hearing or feeling is, my mom thinks I don't know what I'm doing. She doesn't trust me, and she doesn't think I'm capable. And so that's the feeling they take away. Whether it fixes the problem or not, doesn't matter. Our husbands are feeling that too. Oh no, let me take care of that. You don't know what you're doing. I don't trust you. You're not capable of that. So let me take care of it. And it's kind of like the boundaries. We talk about boundaries. For instance, like if we teach our children to load the dishwasher, for instance, but it's not the way we do it. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is what they're hearing. You're not good enough. Let me do it.
Right.
You're not good enough at folding your laundry. Let me take care of it. And so what if we said, wow, that's a new way of doing it. Can you teach me your way? Can you show me how you learned that? That's pretty impressive. I never thought of it that way. And so there we're not criticizing. We're not fixing. We just want to know about them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably breaking a lot of generational cycles also.
Oh, gosh.
I could go down a whole other conversation, right?
Oh, you're not even kidding, because we do what our parents did. We do what we hated when we were little. Right? We hated the way our mom said this, and this, but we're going to teach our kids the same thing. Oh, 100%. But going back to the awareness, I didn't finish. I actually just remembered I was talking about that. If the challenge is just become aware of your talking to other people in the house, the words you use. When someone says, Mom, can I ask you a question? Or Jenna, can I ask you a question? And they start talking, what do you do? Do you jump in? Do you interrupt? What is your initial, oh no, I know what to do. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us do that and we don't even notice. So just become aware and then decide to do something. Because if you don't know where you start, it's hard to change. Mm-hmm. So where are you now?
100%.
Yeah.
The awareness. Oh, gosh, my 5-year-old and I, that's been like, we have like words of the week. I'm always like, this is another good vocabulary term because in awareness, I feel like it's coming back because it's such a simple concept, but it could be talked about with life, right? Like
100%. Yeah.
Being aware of your surroundings for your safety, being aware of your, what 100%. We're talking about right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Awareness being, step one. What other strategies do you have with kind of overcoming that, that not block, but to overcome kind of that barrier with kind of creating that harmony back within just feeling heard and that dynamic within communication.
Yeah. So after you become aware of how you are, think about how you would like it to be. If you think about there's always a person in your life that you go to have a conversation with that really listens. What do you love about that? What do you love about that person? What did they do? Like a lot of times we go to the wrong people if you think about it. So go to someone in your head that you're like, when I go to that person, I feel so heard, so loved. I want to be like that. What do they do? Mm-hmm. And literally step by step, okay, they look at me. They look into my eyes. It doesn't look like they're rushing me. It's usually the same thing. Mm-hmm. They don't interrupt me. They hear me out. All of that. And so little by little, if it's your child, your husband, whoever, start doing that. Now, I'm going to be honest, if you're not used to it, it's really hard. And the other person will be like, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? Jenna, why aren't you saying anything? What's wrong
that
with
extra
you?
Pause, right?
Mom, what did I do wrong? Like, why are you just listening? And so funny story, my husband who did life coaching school before I did, I thought it was kind of silly, the whole thing. I kind of made fun of him for it. And then he did the life coaching, like he did the listening portion, I guess. And he came home and he asked me a question. Now we were married. Gosh, we had 5 children. So we were married a while. And he sat me on the couch and he's talking to me. And then he asked me a question. And then he just sat back and watched me. And I was so uncomfortable. I said, Gino, I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, nothing. I'm like, but what, is there something the matter? And he's like, no, just listening. And I was like, oh, and I was like, wait, okay. And so it's a little awkward if you're not used to that person listening. But it's so incredible because you realize how much you miss out. You've missed out over the past on that person, getting to know the person differently, getting to hear what they're thinking about, getting to hear their feelings and their emotions and their excitements. Because usually we just talk over them.
Exactly. Something like I don't know if it's an insecurity. I wouldn't call it an insecurity of mine, but something that just popped up with what you were saying is I am a very much introverted person. The public speaking very hard, right? However, I feel like I sometimes overindulge because I'm the one uncomfortable with the silence also. So it's like the nervous talking. So speak to me a little bit kind of how to overcome that. Cause I've taken classes in this, but I know that within me now. So I'm almost like, flip it, the awareness piece.
No, I hear you. That nervous talk. My mom was always like that. So I always was used to it and I didn't like it. And when I got married to my husband, my husband's father was Italian. He's from Italy. So a super heavy Italian accent. And I've never met someone that was so comfortable with silence. It was just the strangest thing ever. And I would drive him home because we lived about 45 minutes from the restaurant. So sometimes, he's like, oh, Julia, can you drive me home? It would be in the car for 45 minutes. And the original me would be like, and I would try to think of something to say the whole time because I was so uncomfortable. And he would just sit there and look outside and look around. And over a couple times, I'm like, oh, he's comfortable with silence. And so I had to tell myself and remind myself that silence is incredible. It is beautiful. Yes. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with it. And if the person is uncomfortable, just give it a little, 10 minutes here and there. I always like little steps. My daughter, she's 24. She's been on silent retreats for 8 days. Sometimes I'm like, wow, that's a long time, but she's used to it. And so if we're not used to it, it actually can be very torture. It's almost like sometimes the reason why we're not comfortable with silence is because we don't want to hear what we're thinking. We don't want to hear When there's no noise is when we really can hear our thoughts. We can really hear a lot that's going on, and it's hard for us. And so that's why people leave the TV on. That's why people like to be around noise, is because it's too hard for them to be in that silence. And so if you can do it slowly over time, it's super helpful because it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece that I really help like with my children and just within our
Yeah.
family dynamic of
Yeah.
turning off the TV
Yeah.
or to be able to be with your thoughts because that's
I
when
know.
things get stirred up and things if you
Yes.
call it healing, if you call it
Yes.
whatever you want to call it,
Absolutely.
you're able to work through things
Yeah.
versus continuously compounding, shoving under the rug.
Oh,
100%.
yes. Yes. Absolutely.
You mentioned this earlier on at the beginning of the episode, the diversity of your children. You know, your girls really like to talk, your son not so much. You homeschooled all six of them. So you obviously have learned how to navigate different communication styles.
Hmm.
So are there, for other people listening, different practices or rituals of how to read someone or how to like do you do personality tests or human design, like all these different things, like how do you kind of
Yeah.
read into someone, and then the second part of that question is those how to then communicate differently.
Yeah. Everyone is, I mean, so different. There's a pattern usually. There's only a couple different types, obviously. But that's the beauty of not talking so much at
Mhm.
the kids, is that you can learn about them differently than you ever could. Instead of just barking out orders and treating everyone the same, you realize that each one of them are completely different and they need you differently and they need your communication differently. And yes, it does take time and it changes. Unfortunately, as they grow up, it changes. And you're like, I just got it all figured out.
Uh,
If you ever heard of the five love languages, Dr. Gary Checkman. Okay. So if you go on their website, I'm assuming it's fivelovelanguages.com. They have all these assessments that you can take. And
mhm,
I sent them to my kids sometimes because it's how they want to be loved, basically. And it's the same thing with communication. It all goes together. For instance, like my 13-year-old right now, she loves quality time. So
mhm,
she loves to go out and get coffee. She loves to do silly stuff like that. Like we bake sometimes together. And I don't like some of it. I'm going to be honest. Some of it I'm just like, ah, but I don't, and she knows it. I don't lie to her, but I'm like, all right, Cecilia, let's go. And so she just needs to talk. And I just sit and listen. And I'm like, that's okay. Tell me more. Tell me
mhm,
more about that. My son Michael is a talker in a sense where he likes to talk about certain things, but they're like usually like the guy things, you know what I mean? That I don't really know much about, but I do my best in a sense.
mhm,
And I'm like, I'm like, this is like dad's thing. He's like, no, I know. I just want to tell you about it. I said, sure. Tell me what, teach
mhm,
me what you know. And he likes to teach me all these little things that I don't know about. Some of them are cool. Some of them are completely uninteresting to me, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, that's Michael. Gabriella, our oldest, I feel like she is like the mama's girl. She had me to herself for 3 years or first, you know what I mean? She was her first. And I feel like she's very, she just loves to be with me. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm,
so I have to find the time to be with her in a different way than all the other kids. It's very interesting how that is.
mhm,
Um, and it does take a toll on you because, in all of these, spending all the time with all the kids, they're adults. Three of them are adults. Three of them are underage, but they still need us. They will
yeah,
never stop needing you as a mom, but it's just different.
mhm,
And it's absolutely beautiful, by the way. But the thing is, you just have to sit and listen and learn about your child.
mhm,
Learn about them every year. It's going to be different. And don't worry about it. I always say, like, I pray a lot because that's just how I can handle life. And I
mhm,
just say, God, I'm going to do my best. You take care of everything else. This is all I could give. This is all I could do. Because we can't give our kids everything. We can't love them enough. We just can't. We're not capable of it. There's just, you know what I mean? We can only do what we could do
mhm.
and just give the rest, whatever God can do. So,
Yeah. Oh gosh. And I feel like I always think to myself, when you're reflecting and like going to bed,
yeah.
at night, like all everything stirs, and I'm just like, but Jenna, of course, like, you did your best, but they know how much you love them.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
the care, the attention, the love, like it's
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and because it's like I
Yeah.
yelled again or what,
Of
whatever it might
course.
be, but deep down, oh gosh, and that's so true to be able
Yeah.
to learn them and
Yeah.
to get to know them. And as you're talking, I see it in my 5 and 2-year-old, just how
Yeah.
different they are, and how
Yeah.
Jace, my oldest, needs different type of quality time.
Right.
I mean, Jalen's almost 3, but
Yeah.
I
No.
know that he needs that. He's that more of that sensitive nature, more of,
Hmm.
I want you and only you right now. And
Yes.
it's just very, it goes back to being a privilege, and it's just very
Mm.
fascinating to be able to get to know them and
Yeah.
to have that honor that they look
Yeah.
up to you. Yeah.
But let me just tell you though, Jenna, like I spent years first of all, being hard on myself.
Mhm.
Um, but realizing that I would be home with them all day long, every day, forever. Right. And there were times at the end of the day, like, Mom, I didn't even spend time with you today. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like I've been home all
And
day.
I know.
Right. It is frustrating. And I realized I never spent quality time
Mhm.
with that person in particular that day. And so once I started doing like maybe whatever you can do, if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, whatever it is, spend that time. If it's 10 minutes, spend 10 minutes a day with each one of the people in your home, completely 100% on them. Don't tell them what to do. Don't just spend whatever they want to do. If they want to play Legos, then sit on the floor and play Legos, quality time with them, and
Mhm.
let them know that you're there all in for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Because sometimes that's all they need. They just need that one-on-one for a few minutes. They don't need 3 hours. They don't, you know what I mean? Really. Like, do you ever talk to someone for 5 minutes? You're like, wow, I felt so heard and loved, right?
Mhm.
Because all the kids really want is for us to love them.
Yeah. And our attention, our
That's it.
undivided attention. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so
Mhm.
simple, but we go through the day. We're like, oh, I yelled at them. I didn't give what they wanted. I said no to them.
Mhm.
I know I've asked my adult kids, I'm like, so tell me how I messed you all up. I'm like, I want to know.
I'm curious.
It's fun when they get older because then you could talk about it. They're like,
Yeah.
Mom, we saw you work hard. We saw you were like, you never slept. We know you loved us. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. We could ask the kids, what can I do more? Like
Yeah.
ask your 4-year-old, 10-year-old, doesn't
Exactly.
matter how old. What can mommy do more?
He knows.
Yeah, he'll
He's
tell
so
you.
smart. Yeah.
He'll tell you. So we don't
Exactly.
have to wonder. We don't have to worry. We could say, okay, I can ask my child what they want more from mom. You can
Yeah.
ask your husband, what do you want more from me?
He's the one that probably gets neglected the
Yes,
most.
I know. It's true because we're so overwhelmed. But
Yeah.
again, they're similar. Like they don't want much.
Right.
Our husbands don't want much. You can say, like I say to Gino once in a while, I'm like, what can I do more
Mhm.
for you? And he would sit there and think. He's like, I don't know, maybe let's go for a walk every night. I'm like, okay,
Right.
let's go.
Yeah.
Like it's so simple,
It is. It goes
but
back
we
to that
complicate everything.
quality of time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like,
Exactly.
wait a minute, we have a whole list of things wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's just a little basic thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh gosh. So where can we find you? What services do you offer? I mean, this conversation has been so impactful. So I
Oh
just
gosh.
be able to
Thank
continue.
you. No, this
Yeah.
is so good. If you go on juliaandgino.com, so my husband and I, we have a podcast together. I also do private coaching. I have groups. I have high performance coaching as well. Mothers groups, which meet on Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. And it's just basic what we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
all basic stuff that I think that I personally didn't have when I had a lot of friends, a lot of homeschool group friends, but we didn't talk about this. I thought it was me. I thought I was the only one struggling. I was
Mhm.
the only one feeling lonely. I felt guilty saying that out loud. And I realized that everyone goes through it. We just don't talk about it. And so I just want to let people know, like I said in the beginning, just being a mom, you're doing an amazing job. You love your children and just do what you can and don't worry. Don't worry so much.
Mhm.
Just trust that you're doing what you can.
Amen. I mean,
Yeah.
that is why this podcast
Yeah.
exists, because
Yeah.
that we're not alone, and we all
No.
struggle, and we are all in the trenches. And thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
I have one final question.
Okay.
And this is something I ask all the guests on my show. And I kind of just tweaked the question a little bit. So if I ask me if you don't understand it. So you kind of share this in the beginning, but what are some moments within your life where you just knew, if they were like pivotal forks in the road, right? That you just knew, like you knew, like you knew, like you were on the right path. You were in your energy of alignment, is what I call it. But just you were authentically you, following your divine path in life.
Yeah. Wow. That's,
I
yeah.
love how open-ended it is too. So
No, I love it. When you just said that, I had like so many flashes of memories because because sometimes it's hard to pick one. But there was a moment, my husband has a big real estate company and he teaches people how to buy multifamily apartments. And, I'm not interested in that, but we go to his conferences and all my kids come and they all help. And this one lady came up to me and she's like, we're here for real estate, but can you tell me how you do what you do? And I said, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I'm watching you. Your kids are all helping. They're all well-mannered. They're all respectful. They're all good to you. All these compliments that you don't even notice as a mom sometimes because you're just,
Yeah.
She's like, I want to learn from you how you do it. And I'm like, and this is the moment where I was still terrified of people. And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, I'm going to wait. She's like, that's when I secretly went home and I looked into life coaching. And as terrified as I was, I signed up to be a life coach. I'm like, I have to learn how to talk to people and I have to learn how to communicate and I have to learn all these things because obviously there's a bigger thing here. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started life coaching, was after that woman who asked me how I did what I did and I couldn't answer her. I literally couldn't answer her. And so ladies, you have a mission. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, but you do. There's a desire in your heart to go out and to help people. And it's usually someone where you've experienced something. Like mine was loneliness. And I want to help everyone that feels lonely because I've experienced it and I want to help you. And so we all have that. And so sometimes like our biggest gift in life is next to something that was such a hard moment in our life. And so embrace that because that might be a huge gift for so many people.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, Julia, thank you so much for your time. This
was so good.
I had like tears in my eyes the whole time, and that last little bit, they just started streaming. Thank you so much. I mean, I can't wait to re-listen when I edit this episode, and just that all our listeners, everything that we discussed will be in the show notes where you can find Julia. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jenna.
Until next week, as always, simply be you. You have everything inside of you to learn your energy of alignment and be unapologetic in who you are. We are sending our love and light.
Did you find this episode relatable or empowering? Peace, we love a VO.
Thank you for spending this sacred time with me on Naturally Empowered Living. I pray this episode has brought you a step closer to tuning into your energy of alignment. And if it has, please consider leaving a written review sharing how this show has impacted you. Your feedback truly lights me up and helps other moms find their way to this community. And if it feels right, please share this episode with another mom who might be struggling to remind her that she's never alone. Be sure to check the show notes for more ways to connect and explore how we could work together to reclaim your power and deepen your relationship within. Thank you. I appreciate all you are and all you do.